The 15th meeting of the Special Political and Decolonization Committee is called to order. Distinguished delegates, as previously announced, the committee will today first take action on the draft proposal submitted under Agenda Item 53, Cooperation in the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, as contained in documents A/C4/70/L2 Rev 1 and A/C4/70/L7. Thereafter, the committee will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 58, questions relating to information, to exhaust its list of speakers in the debate and take action on the proposals contained in the report of the Committee on Information, the document A/70/21. The committee is reminded that action on draft resolution A/C4/70/L9 Rev 1, entitled Matters Relating to Activities under the United Nations Programme on Space Applications in 2016, will take place at a later date to be announced. A statement on the program budget implications of that draft resolution has been issued as document A/C4/70/L13. Distinguished delegates, I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria in his capacity as the representative of the chair of the Working Group of the Whole on International Cooperation in the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space to report on the discussions in that group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Working Group of the Whole, established under Agenda Item 53, held 3 meetings from the 19th to 21st of October 2015 under the chairmanship of Mr. Azzedine Boussaïdik of Algeria in his capacity as chair of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. The Working Group of the Whole considered the draft resolution on international cooperation in the peaceful uses of outer space, tabled by Algeria, as contained in document A/C.4/70/L.2 of 29 September 2015, and the draft resolution on matters relating to activities under the United Nations Programme on Space Applications in 2016, tabled by Costa Rica, Kenya, and South Africa, and contained in document A/C.4/70/L.9 of 22 October 2015. At its third and final meeting, the Working Group of the Whole agreed to both draft resolutions as a whole as revised. The agreed revised text of these 2 draft resolutions have therefore been formally edited and translated and are now presented in documents A/C.4/70/L.2 Rev 1 of 22 October 2015 and A/C4/70/L.9 Rev 1 of 22 October 2015. The fourth committee will take action on draft resolution A/C.4/70/L9 Rev 1 next week at a time to be announced by the Secretariat. Consequently, only draft resolution A/C4/70/L2 Rev 1 will be taken up for action today at the present meeting. I therefore have the pleasure of transmitting for action by the fourth committee the draft resolution contained in document A/C4/70/L2 Rev 1 of 22 October 2015. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the distinguished representative of Algeria for your statement.
Action on the draft proposals under Agenda Item 53. Before proceeding to take a decision on the draft proposals, I should like to inform you that in order to conduct the work efficiently while using the time and resources that are available to us, the procedure for this stage of the committee's work will be as follows. Before the committee takes action on the draft resolution or draft decision under this agenda item, an opportunity will be given to those member states wishing to make a general statement other than explanation of vote on either the draft resolution or draft decision. This is not to be confused with the explanation of vote. Before a decision or vote is taken on each draft proposal, an opportunity will be given to delegations wishing to explain their position or their vote. The committee will then take action on the draft proposal. After each draft proposal is adopted, an opportunity will be given to the delegations wishing to explain their position or vote after the decision. Delegations may also wish to make a general statements at the end of the consideration of the item. This procedure will be applied with the cooperation of all of the members of the committee. If I hear no objections, the committee shall proceed accordingly. Distinguished delegates, I have been informed that by the Secretariat that there are no program budget implications arising from the draft resolution A/C4/70/L2/Rev1 and draft decision A/C4/70/L7 submitted under this agenda item. I shall now give the floor to any delegations wishing to make general statements on the draft resolution and draft decision submitted under the item. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the European Union. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The European Union and its member states support the principle that all UN member states should have the right to become members of UN bodies, including the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, as long as the relevant rules and procedures are respected. This right, we believe, should not be challenged on political grounds. Challenging this principle sets a dangerous precedent that can hinder the spirit of respect and cooperation that should preside over the works of this committee and of the United Nations at large. For these reasons, the European Union and its member states will support draft decision AC470L7 before us, which will admit 6 new member states to the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, and which all European Union member states have co-sponsored. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of the European Union for his statement. We shall now take action on these draft proposals one by one. We shall first take action on draft resolution A/C4/70/L2/Rev1, entitled International Cooperation in the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. I now invite delegations wishing to explain their position before a decision is taken on the draft resolution. Okay. Since there are no such delegations, we shall take a decision on draft resolution A/C4/70/L2/Rev1, entitled Cooperation in the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt this draft resolution without a vote? Since I hear no objection, the draft resolution is adopted without a vote. I shall now give the floor to those delegations wishing to explain their positions after the decision. Okay. There is no such a delegation. Now the committee will proceed to take action on the draft decision A/C4/70/L7, entitled Increase in the Membership of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. I would like to inform delegations that in addition to the co-sponsors listed in L7, the following member states have become co-sponsors of the draft decision: Albania, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Chile, Costa Rica, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Mexico, Micronesia, Monaco, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Republic of Korea, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Uganda, Ukraine, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I will now give the floor to those delegations wishing to explain their position before action is taken on the draft decision. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Arab Group. You have the floor, Madam.
شكرا.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I am honored to speak on behalf of the Arab Group on the draft resolution tabled now for voting on increasing the members of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, which has been tabled by the United States of America. At the beginning, the Arab Group would like to go on record with its position in support of the 5 states, UAE, Qatar, Oman, Sri Lanka, and El Salvador, who have applied to become members of the committee. And we also express that we look forward to their joint efforts with international efforts to advance economic development through their work in the committee and to benefit from the space applications that can be based upon their membership in COPUOS. Mr. Chairman, the Arab Group would like to go on record with its reservation on Israel's ascension to this committee because its lack of belief in the peaceful uses of outer space and its lack of transparency in its space activities and its refusal to join any treaties on non-proliferation, which are all contradictory to the peaceful nature of the committee, in addition to its lack of compliance with international resolutions and UN resolutions and its continued occupation of Arab land and violation of international law. Mr. Chairman, the Arab Group would like to express that it finds it strange not to consult the Arab states when considering this draft resolution, in addition to the language that has mentioned 6 states without naming the states. And it was more appropriate to look to consider the membership of each state separately. In addition, the consensus on the 5 states I mentioned and neglecting inclusion of the 58th session report and also the chair's summary on the membership issue. Mr. Chairman, the Arab Group reiterates its continued support for the committee's efforts and its efforts to advance the peaceful uses of outer space. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia for her statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. You have the floor, sir.
شكرا السيد الرئيس على إعطائي.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor to explain our voting on the draft resolution increasing the number of COPUOS, which is before us for voting. The delegation of the Syrian Arab Republic expresses its strong objection to Israel's nomination to the membership of the COPUOS. Therefore, we call for voting on the aforementioned draft resolution. Some may say that our delegation's objection to the draft resolution is a politicization of the work of the committee. However, this is null and void and can be easily refuted. In our objection, we invoke specific legal bases rather than political bases. To explain this matter, I will not speak here about the violations of Israel and its crimes against the Palestinians and the Syrians chafing under the yoke of occupation for around 50 years. Talking about such violations and crimes requires much longer time than that allocated to the work of our committee in this session. I wish here to refer to some points. First, Israel, being the occupying power, continues its occupation. This runs counter to international law and violates the provisions of the Charter, as all of you know. This matter itself does not qualify it to nominate itself in any UN body or its subsidiary organs. Second, Resolution 273 of 1949 specified the terms of accepting Israel's membership in the United Nations to abide by Resolution 181 providing for the establishment of the Palestinian state, and to abide by Resolution 194 of 1948 stipulating the return of Palestinian refugees to their homes. After the passage of around 65 years since the adoption of that resolution in this organization, Israel has not carried out the contents of these two resolutions. To the contrary, Israeli officials publicly reject the contents of these two resolutions. Hence, it is evident that Israel's nomination to the UN subsidiary organs and agencies should not be accepted. Third, Mr. Chairman, the Committee on COPIOS, the peaceful uses of outer space to which Israel is nominating itself, this principle runs counter to Israel's aggressive dogma, particularly if we state that Israel possesses a huge arsenal of weapons, including nuclear weapons. This calls into question Israel's intentions on this score. Accordingly, there is no justification to deviate from the principal political and legal tenets entrenched in the Charter and the GA resolutions with regard to Israel's ineligibility as an occupying power and as a power that does not carry out the terms of its membership in the United Nations so far. Consequently, it has no eligibility or qualification to be a member of any body of the United Nations or agency. Before Israel nominates itself to any post in the United Nations, it has to adhere to the Charter of the UN as well as the provisions of the relevant resolutions and terminate its occupation of Arab territory in Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon, and cease its violations against the Arab population chafing under occupation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for his statement. And now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iran. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Mr. Chairman, we would like to put on record the following. The delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran welcomes the appointment of El Salvador, Oman, Qatar, Sri Lanka, and the United Arab Emirates as members of the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, but strongly objects to the way the decision was drafted, which has led to the current difficult and unfavorable situation in this committee. Furthermore, my delegation strongly objects to the appointment of Israeli regime as a member of the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Mr. Chairman, the way this decision contained in document A/C.4/70/L.7 is drafted is by no means acceptable to us because it does not conform to the basic principles of consultation, transparency, and through negotiation that should form the basis of our work. If you looked at the draft decision, you see no name, whereas we know that there are 6 applicants for that. Why there is no name? And this is, obviously shows the level of the transparency. In fact, no transparency. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iran for his statement. A recorded vote has been requested. I now give the floor to the Secretary of the Committee to conduct the voting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee will now vote on the draft decision contained in document A/C4/70/L7 entitled Increasing the Membership of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. The voting machine is unlocked. Delegations are kindly requested to indicate their votes on the board. Delegations in favor of the draft decision, kindly press the green button. Against, the red button. Abstentions, the yellow button. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the board? The voting has been completed. The machine is locked.
The result of the vote is as follows. 117 votes in favor of the draft decision, 1 against, and 21 abstentions. The draft decision A/C4/70/L7 is therefore adopted. I shall now give the floor to those delegations wishing to explain their position after the decision. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kuwait. You have the floor, sir.
شكرا سيد رئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, my delegation would like to express its support for the statement of Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Arab group. We would like to express our congratulations to the 5 states, UAE, State of Qatar, the Sultanate of Oman, Sri Lanka, and El Salvador, which nominated themselves to the membership of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, and we hope that these states will accede to supporting cooperation in the peaceful uses of outer space, as well as benefiting from the applications provided by the committee. My delegation would like to record its reservation at Israel's membership in that committee because of our lack of confidence in its intention with regard to the peaceful uses of outer space. It has nothing to do with peaceful, and its nuclear activities and rejection of relevant international conventions, all of which run counter to the work of the committee. Israel does not abide by any international legitimate resolutions, and it continues to occupy Arab territory and violate international laws. In conclusion, we would like to express our continuous support for the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished representative of Kuwait for his statement. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iraq.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation would like to express its support for the Arab group delivered by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we back the 5 states for their membership on COPIOS. My delegation, Mr. Chairman, would like to justify or explain its abstention because it adopted one package and we object to Israel's membership because of its lack of good faith in the peaceful uses of outer space, and we support the COPIOS. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iraq for his statement, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria. Vous avez la parole, monsieur.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to express our support for the membership of UAE, Qatar, the Sultanate of Oman, Sri Lanka, and El Salvador for the membership of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. And we welcome them as new members to support international cooperation in this field, as well as to benefit from the peaceful application and uses emanating from the membership in that committee. Taking into consideration that the applications of these 5 states were unanimously approved during the 85th session of COPIOS last June. We express our rejection of Israel's membership because we have doubts about its intentions and its attempts to accede to this committee are by no means for peaceful uses of the outer space, given the dubious actions it is undertaking. Therefore, we abstained because of our objection to Israel's membership. We express our support for these 5 states, particularly the Arab states, and we welcome them as new members, and we would like to express our support for the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the representative of Algeria for his statement.
The distinguished representative of Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, I would like, through you, to express my congratulations to the members of the Bureau for their appointment to the 4th committee. And I would like to commend the efforts undertaken by Algeria during its chairmanship of COPIOS. My delegation sought the floor to explain its vote after the vote. And I would like here to subscribe to the statement made by my colleague of Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Arab group, and state that the stance taken by Qatar is based on the reasons cited in the Arab statement. We would like to reiterate our support for the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, and we look forward to the membership in that committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished representative of Qatar for his statement, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Gabon. You have the floor, madam.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, my delegation would like to say a few words about the resolution which has been submitted to a vote this morning. We all know that this resolution is very often adopted by consensus, and we were rather surprised this morning because we put it to the vote. My country would like, nonetheless, to reaffirm its support for the work of the committee and for the committee itself. Thank you very much. I thank the distinguished representative of Gabon for her statement.
I don't have any more speakers for the explanations of vote after the vote. Does any delegation wish to make a general statement after the vote on the draft decision? I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to welcome all of the 6 candidate countries to the Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space, or COPUOS. COPUOS is an important body that does important work, benefiting its entire membership. And its membership, appropriately, is diverse. It includes countries with elaborate space programs, countries interested in developing such programs, and countries interested in simply benefiting from space technology. It is from its diversity of members that COPUOS draws its strength and its ability to advance important technical collaboration, from using space-based information for disaster management to promoting the interoperability of satellite navigation systems. That is why the United States drafted and tabled the decision that was adopted today. And that is why our action today is so important. It both ensures that COPUOS continues to enjoy the benefits of a diverse membership and ensures that COPUOS, which does such valuable work, does not get mired in an unfair, unhelpful, politicized debate about whether or not to expand its membership, a debate that does not serve the work or the mission of the committee. We are grateful for those who were supportive, especially those who chose to co-sponsor this action over the several weeks between the circulation of the draft decision and today. Today's adoption is an affirmation that the United Nations is capable of avoiding unnecessary politicization as we focus on advancing substantive work that can benefit all of our countries and peoples. The United States would like to welcome all 6 countries, El Salvador, Israel, Oman, Qatar, Sri Lanka, and the UAE, to the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, and we are confident that the committee will be stronger by virtue of their participation and membership. Since some have questioned Israel's membership, let me say this. Suggestions that Israel has anything other than peaceful intentions regarding outer space are baseless. Israel, with over 30 years of activity in space, has much to offer COPUOS. It has collaborated internationally with many space agencies, including the United States' own NASA, and to suggest that their intentions are not peaceful is to perpetuate an inflammatory claim designed to advance an agenda that is something other than advancing the important technical work of COPUOS. In addition, let's be clear about another point. Efforts to delegitimize Israel in the United Nations are biased, they are wrong, and they are counterproductive. They only serve to undermine the purpose of this institution and the noble ideals upon which it was founded. The United States will continue to work tirelessly and relentlessly to combat any such effort and protect the important work that we must continue to do, including the work of COPUOS, together. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States for his statement, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel. You have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, as I take the floor for the first time in this committee, please allow me to thank you for your dedicated service and for your leadership of this committee. Israel is pleased to become a full member of COPUOS. On behalf of the State of Israel, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the United States for tabling the decision and the many co-sponsors for their support. I would also like to commend many, I wish it was all, but it's not all, it's many in the committee, for approaching this decision in a professional and principled manner. The determined effort to keep political differences from interfering in the decision-making process demonstrates a firm commitment to the core UN value of impartiality. Unfortunately, we have heard representatives from certain countries who seek to politicize the work of this committee. The work of COPUOS has always been a purely professional matter with a non-political agenda, and I quote, to promote international cooperation in the peaceful use and exploration of space. We must not allow this committee to be hijacked by those who seek to abuse this platform for political objectives. There is no shortage of political forums in the UN, but COPUOS should not be one of them. Mr. Chairman, Israel has cooperated with COPUOS in the past, and we look forward to playing an engaged and active role as a member. As Israel's former Minister for Science, Technology and Space, I can attest to Israel's commitment to international cooperation for the peaceful use of outer space. Israel began its space program in the early 60s, when the Israeli Academy of Sciences and Humanities established the National Committee for Space Research. Even then, when we struggled with the challenges of a developing country, we invested in space because we understood the potential for the research of the cosmos to transform our reality here on Earth. Since then, our dedication to the field of space has deepened many times over. In combination with the Israeli spirit of innovation, we have seen remarkable accomplishments. Israel is now one of only 11 countries to have space launch capability. Israeli space innovation is helping to connect isolated populations to the rest of the world. Just recently, Facebook announced that it will use the Amos 6, an Israeli satellite, to improve internet access in the developing world. The leading role Israel plays in space research has been recognized around the globe. The International Astronautical Federation selected Israel to host its annual meeting. Just 2 weeks ago, the heads of nearly 40 national space agencies, former astronauts and others came to Jerusalem for the annual International Astronautical Congress. We are proud that an Israeli astronaut, Ilan Ramon, joined the crew of the Space Shuttle Columbia as a payload specialist. While we continue to mourn the tragic loss of Ramon and his fellow astronauts, we in Israel honor his commitment to exploring the unknown frontier and to expanding the boundaries of human knowledge. In the spirit of scientific enterprise and pioneering adventure, Israel looks to a future of international cooperation and peaceful endeavors in outer space. We are eager to pursue this cosmic vision as full member of COPUS. Today marks an important milestone for Israel, for Israeli girls and boys who dream of space, and for the future of our collaboration with the UN. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel for his statement. And now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Sri Lanka is pleased to become a full member of the committee. Sri Lanka thanks the members of the fourth committee for the adoption of the decision. Sri Lanka would like to state that we supported this decision and the presentation of all candidatures of member states as a composite single package in keeping with established practice. And as we are against the politicization of the process of corpus, which is essentially a technical and scientific committee. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka for her statement. Since there are no speakers on my list, no more speakers, the committee has thus concluded action on the two proposals under item 53 and this stage of its consideration of this agenda item. As mentioned earlier, action on draft resolution A/C4/70/L9/revision 1, entitled Matters Relating to Activities under the United Nations Programme on Space Applications in 2016, will take place at a later date to be announced. The committee will now resume its consideration of agenda item 58, entitled Questions Relating to Information, to conclude its general debate and proceed to take action on draft resolutions A and B contained in the report of the Committee on Information, document A/70/21, pages 13 and 14 of the English version. Can we have some silence, please? We shall now continue with the speakers inscribed on my list for the general debate on item 58. Before giving the floor to the first speaker on my list, I wish to remind delegations of the time limits of 10 minutes for statements by individual member states. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of United Arab Emirates. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this year's session is of particular significance as it marks the 70th anniversary of the United Nations and the commencement of a new chapter that builds on the achievements of MDGs through the adoption of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda by heads of state and government in an ambitious agenda that will transform the world over the next 50 years. Information, especially social media and modern communication networks, plays a key role in directing the present developments and changes taking place in our world today. Information also contributes to strengthening solidarity and interdependence of peoples and communities at all levels, promoting dialogue among citizens and cultures, encouraging exchange of humanitarian interests. My country commends the role of DPI, especially media outreach networks, in promoting the main priorities of the UN, including high-level meetings, global campaigns, and international days and celebrations. My country participated in the global event World Turns UN Blue on 24 October 2015, which celebrated the 70th anniversary of the UN and aimed at promoting peace, development, and human rights. The Etihad Towers, the Abu Dhabi Global Market Building in Al Maria Island, the Haza bin Zayed Stadium in Al Ain Sin and Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque were among the locations turned blue on that day at the UAE. During the discussions of this item in the 69th session of the GA, my country referred to the attempts of some irresponsible actors, especially extremist and terrorist groups, to exploit the new technologies in media and communication in defaming religions and cultures, inciting extremism and violence, and fueling subversion and division within societies. They also use media in recruiting fighters for joining terrorist and extremist organizations. To combat this phenomenon, which has become a serious threat to international peace and security, UAE launched recently SWAB Center in cooperation with the US. The center aimed at combating terrorist messages spread by Daesh through social media and giving moderate voices the opportunity to reach millions of people and reject terrorist practices and misleading conceptions promoted by Daesh and other terrorist groups. In this context, we caution against the attempts by some media institutions to distort the principles of Islam and to fuel hatred and racial discrimination against Muslims. We stress that these practices incite and motivate many young people around the world to join extremist groups and commit terrorist acts that are detrimental to their own people and to other countries. Mr. Chairman, the UAE delegation welcomes the growing role of the DPI and the Committee on Information in the United Nations and their efforts to enhance public awareness of the UN principles, purposes, and programs, especially humanitarian and development programs. We also hope that the Arabic language services are developed in all UN activities similar to the other 5 official languages in the UN and as stipulated in GA resolutions. As part of our ongoing efforts in supporting the protection of children affected by armed conflict around the globe, the UAE has recently funded the Arabic translation of the book entitled Child Soldiers, a Handbook for Security Sector Actors, which is based on Romeo Dallaire initiative on Child Soldier. The Romeo Dallaire Child Soldier Initiative works closely with the DPKO, UNICEF, and UN Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict. This handbook is used in national training contexts to enhance the capacity of peacekeepers who are deploying to missions where children are used as weapons of war. We stress the need to strengthen the activities of the Department of Public Information in the areas of increasing public awareness of the Palestinian question and the situation in the Middle East, and in revealing the facts of the Palestinians and Arab peoples suffering inside the Arab occupied territories, including the effects of Israeli attacks against the Al-Aqsa Mosque by Israeli settlers that should be exposed, including the death and injury of dozens of innocent people every day. This runs counter to relevant international legitimacy resolutions. In conclusion, we call for intensifying international cooperation in the area of deployment of communication technology, flow of information, transmission of facts, and exchange knowledge in order to promote peace and tolerance among the civilizations, deepen communication and harmony among all peoples and nations. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United Arab Emirates for his statement, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bahrain.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful, Mr. Chairman, the delegation of the Kingdom of Bahrain expresses its thanks to the Secretary General for his report A/70/220 on the item under discussion, matters relating or questions relating to occupation. We wish also to thank the committee on information in its thoroughgoing report, document A/70/21. These two reports constitute two torches that enlighten the road before us to keep us abreast of the way cut by DPI and the reporting period. We wish also to thank Mrs. Christina Galash, the USG, for information and communication. We thank her for her detailed presentation about the achievements made by the department, focusing on the way forward designed by the department. We have no doubt that such approach conforms with the proposals designed to make the United Nations a strong organ to translate the collective hopes into a reality and not a mere symbol of these hopes. We wish also to extend our thanks for the information derived from the interactive dialogue, which displayed the ambiguous matters and the department's attempts and approach to evaluating the cultures and to specify and clarify that role, accepting the positive and discarding the negative. The department is the mirror that reflects the activities of the United Nations and propagate them in all fields. The department is undertaking the role of the UN Mandela Award, as well as undertaking promotional activities for the award, holding the International Annual Information Seminar on Peace in the Middle East on the 21st and 22nd of May 2015 in the framework of the information program on the question of Palestine, as well as its cooperation with the Department of Peacekeeping Operations and DSS to celebrate the International Day of Peacekeepers on the 29th of May under the title The United Nations After 70 Years and its Peacekeeping Operations Past, Present and the Future. Numerous of UN information centers played a vital role in organizing exhibitions, book fairs, and other processions. The UNEX network, consisting of 63 information centers, propagate for the Sustainable Development Agenda and expanding it by numerous means involving governments, the academia, the civil society, and the public through seminars and conferences that imitate the model of the United Nations, in addition to continuing the 2015 campaign, international efforts to alert to the issues of sustainable development, as well as the UN Summit Conference on the post-2015 development agenda. UNEX, under the banner of the department, perform an important role in celebrating the 70th anniversary. UN Blue on the 24th of October, participating with the government and the academia as well as the civil society. The department continues its efforts and intensifies arrangements to conform with the agreement of cooperation held in the Sound Cloud regarding the Arab Broadcast Unit. These efforts are fundamental by the department, and this requires linguistic parity among all the 6 official languages. With regard to the decisive role undertaken by DPI, I will not be exaggerating if I say that they are information beacons and edification rostra, as well as awareness hubs from which the public gains awareness with regard to sustainable development, climate change, and others, particularly in regard to many developing countries that lack highly sophisticated modern means of communication. The outcome of a speedy scientific advancement, as well as its terrific progress in the technical field. This gives UNEX and conventional means of communication special importance to disseminate information in the developing countries. Conventional means of communication must be taken into consideration. They should not be ignored in promoting UN products and noble activities and goals, particularly for the developing countries. This also makes of UNEX the means that attract further population and which become more highly influential, urging them to acquire information smoothly and easily through visiting these UN information centers. They must be fostered and their effectiveness must be increased. They must be provided with clips, publications, and optic discs to achieve the development goals. If the international community, in conformity with Resolution 34/182 of 18 December 1979, is yearning to establish new international communication and information center, which will be more just and more effective, revolving on the free circulation of information to achieve the goals and to make them come true. Once the digital gap is narrowed between the developing and developed countries, if we cannot bridge the development of human and technical resources for the developing countries is indispensable to upgrade information and communication in a manner that corresponds with the UN Millennium Declaration, as well as paragraph 10 and goals 8 to 17 of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. DPI has achieved success in most of its activities. The department must intensify its efforts since the GA encouraged it with regard to the information program relating to the question of Palestine until a just solution is found, ending Israeli occupation and the establishment of a independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds as its capital. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished ambassador of Bahrain for his statement, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Morocco. You have the floor, sir.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to first of all thank the Secretary General for his report A/7D/220, and I'd like to pay tribute to the Information Committee for its excellent work. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Mrs. Christina Galash, Under Secretary General for Communication and Information, for her comprehensive presentation, which underscored the activities of the Department of Public Information. I would like to assure you of the support and cooperation of my delegation. My delegation would like to associate itself with the statement made by South Africa on behalf of G77 plus China. Mr. Chairman, the dissemination and greater media exposure of the activities of the organization is more than ever important today in the era of globalization, where information has experienced an unprecedented development. The need in reliable, neutral, and objective information is essential. The promotion of values that we defend, such as peace, solidarity, tolerance, and sustainable development, should be at the heart of the activities of the Department of Public Information. On this point, we welcome the activities planned in the framework of the Special Program of Information on the question of Palestine, and call on the strengthening of its activities in order to uphold the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to an independent and viable state with Al-Quds as capital. Other United Nations activities would benefit from more media exposure. Amongst them, for example, the activities of peace building of the United Nations. We could take advantage of the second review of the UN peace-building architecture to launch a promotion campaign that would make it possible to publicize this tool, which in spite of its success and over 10 years after its establishment, still suffers from a lack of visibility. My delegation also welcomes the communication and awareness-raising activities of the United Nations in Africa against Ebola, which has made it possible to mobilize the international community to put a stop to the spread of the pandemic. Along the same line of ideas, the greater media exposure for the new Partnership for the Development of Africa and the third International Conference on Financing for Development, which took place in Addis Ababa in July 2015, certainly lent greater visibility to these events to glean the support of the international community and its involvement. In this context, it's essential that the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda that the United Nations adopted last month should be the subject of a broad media campaign and communication campaign in order to explain its goals, help in its effective implementation by decision makers, and bring target populations closer to it. My delegation would like the DPI to continue to attach particular attention to the dissemination of the humanitarian values of the United Nations, such as tolerance, solidarity, respect for human rights, and also promote interreligious and intercultural dialogue to prevent any form of extremism, xenophobia that fuels violence and stokes tension and discord within societies and among nations. These programs are essential, especially in these troubled times where religions are being used, and it forces us to be more vigilant and mobilize in the face of the seriousness of the situation. Mr. Chairman, one of the solutions to deal with the lack of resources and the increasing number of subjects covered is to use new information and communication technologies. We welcome the efforts in this area. However, the digital divide remains a reality, and limited access to modern communication tools strengthens the importance of traditional communication tools. These tools, in particular radio and the written press, remain the main vector for the dissemination of information in many developing countries. And on this point, we call the Department of Public Information to balance and adapt its program by taking into account these realities. Among existing structures, the information centers of the United Nations play an important role in promoting the activities and the universal values of the United Nations, and should thus benefit from the constant support of the DPI. The Center for Rabat, established in 1962, actively participates in promoting the flagship activities of the United Nations among the Moroccan public, in particular by developing partnerships with academia as well as through cooperation with national and international press present in Morocco. This cooperation took a concrete form of launching of a regional campaign, 70th anniversary of the UN, inform, raise awareness, and mobilize young people. This was launched on the 9th of October 2015 in cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation and other departments and institutions of learning. Mr. Chairman, Morocco, as a fervent defender of multilingualism, one of the foundations of our organization, shares the view that linguistic and cultural diversity is a major advantage in combating xenophobia and exclusion. This conviction is bolstered by the cultural diversity and linguistic diversity present in Morocco due to its history and its geographical position, which has made it a crossroads of influences and cultures. The Moroccan Constitution of 2011 enshrines and protects this cultural and linguistic diversity. Arabic, as well as French, as well as Amazigh, or even as Spanish are used around the country. This particularity strengthens our attachment to the equal treatment of all the UN official languages. We are also aware of the financial and logistic challenges that are posed there in order to reduce the inequality in the treatment among the 6 official languages. And we would like to congratulate the DPI for its efforts to expand its coverage as much as possible by using local languages. Mr. Chairman, upcoming major events, in particular on climate change, specifically the Paris conference in December 2015 and the Marrakesh conference in 2016, require media attention by the United Nations. We invite the Department of Public Information to carry out awareness-raising and media exposure campaigns specifically for these 2 conferences, to give them appropriate support and achieve a broad international support regarding climate change and the implementation of this agreement. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate our support for your efforts and our commitment to work with all delegations for the successful success of the work of this committee. Thank you very much.
The distinguished representative of Morocco for his statement, and I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cameroon. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman, during a previous statement, I had the opportunity to thank and congratulate your Bureau for their election, and I complimented them on the quality of their leadership. Nonetheless, you must understand that this morning I can't resist the urge to welcome you personally and thank you for the skill with which you have been conducting our work. Sir, my delegation takes note of all of the documentation on the item questions relating to information, the subject of our work this morning, and I would like to thank the USG head of DPI for her briefing last Tuesday. I would also like to congratulate the chairman of the Committee on Information for the quality of his report, and also the rapporteur of that committee for the excellent briefing that was delivered 2 days ago. The report of the Secretary General A/78/220 and the report of the Committee on Information at its 37th session in document A/70/21 highlight a certain number of concerns when it comes to communication. It mentions, among other things, the widening of the digital gap between developed countries and poor countries on the one hand, and also the question of multilingualism on the other. Concerning the digital gap, while many UN resolutions urgently call for efforts to be made to enable better access by all to information in equal conditions. We are forced to acknowledge, however, that the technological monopoly in the hands of a few leads to a sort of single way of thinking. And thus, those who don't have the means to act must inevitably undergo the actions of others. The information society seems to fuel a system of different priorities, which can lead to misunderstandings of all kinds, and this, in one way or another, could be at the root of situations of intolerance and a lack of mutual understanding. Hence, Mr. Chairman, the importance of diversifying the sources of information and therefore democratizing access to information technology. Sir, Cameroon doesn't want to be left out of the technological evolution and wants to be part of the information society. It's from this standpoint that we have developed a vast project which aims to provide Cameroon with multi-purpose community telecenters, where one of the main goals is to broaden access to the internet in rural areas and to encourage structures which would focus on reducing the digital gap and in promoting the information society in Cameroon. Sir, aware of the fact that to reduce this digital gap, we must start with the principle that access for all to the internet is crucial. And therefore, Cameroon decided to build a national backbone, if you like, which would provide interconnection between the capitals of regions, departments, and districts with more than 5,600 square kilometers of fiber optic that has been deployed. Sir, I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to express my delegation's appreciation to DPI, which has spared no effort to ensure that the vocation of the Information Society would be truly that of globalization and one of inclusion when it comes to information, and not one of marginalization. As the resolution points out on the UN's activities and policies when it comes to information, DPI ensures that the UN remains the crucial foundation of a just and peaceful world, and make sure that its voice is heard clearly and in a very tangible way. This effort is still relevant more than ever in the current context of the 70th anniversary of the United Nations and after the adoption of the 2030 Development Program. Hence, my delegation is pleased with the action carried out by DPI when it comes to the public dissemination of detailed information on the principles, purposes, ideals, and activities of our organization. This work can be further enhanced and put in context. Thus, when it comes to peace, for example, beyond the articles and reports from different local and international media that talk about the brutality of Boko Haram, fair, balanced, and educational information from the UN on the dangers of violent extremism and the virtues of tolerance and respect for diversity would be welcome through a more resolute involvement of the UN Information Center in Yaoundé, complementing national efforts which are deployed by Cameroonian public authorities. Similarly, Mr. Chairman, a campaign can be carried out at the local level by Yaoundé's UNIC on the 2030 agenda and its specific implementation. And on another level, Cameroon is convinced that the impact of the UN's actions could be enhanced by making the same information available in real time throughout the community of nations. And here my delegation believes that despite the reluctance of some who claim that this would lead to budget overruns, additional efforts should be made to ensure equal treatment in all of the UN's official languages. And we'd also like to see online information services available in all of the languages without too much of a lag between the publication in one language and its translation in the other official languages. This is also a sign of respect for diversity, which we defend on a daily basis. Mr. Chairman, while welcoming the quality and the quantity of online information of our organization, it should be pointed out that the digital gap, which I mentioned, in fact, makes it inaccessible for a very large number of users. Hence, my delegation would call for a more human version, if you like, of information from the United Nations. And beyond ecological and economic considerations, hard copy publications remain the only way of acquiring information for a large part of the global population. And hence, once again, I would like to pay tribute to the work done by the UN information centers who make available to the public hard copy publications as well as digital documents. And that's why Cameroon has worked relentlessly to strengthen its cooperation with the UN Information Center for Central Africa based in Yaoundé. And this center, sir, should receive the necessary financial and human resources which are commensurate with its vocation and its mission. Thank you very much for your attention.
I
thank the distinguished representative of Cameroon for a statement.
I heard the last speaker inscribed on my list, and we have thus concluded the general debate on this item, having heard altogether 38 general statements. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now proceed to take action and decision on draft resolution A, entitled Information in the Service of Humanity, contained in Chapter 4, paragraph 28 of document A/70/21 on page 13 of the English text, and draft resolution B, entitled United Nations Public Information Policies and Activities, contained in the same document on the page 14, in the English version of it. I would recall that the Committee of Information adopted these two draft resolutions by consensus. Distinguished delegates, I have also been informed by the Secretariat that there are no program budget implications arising from draft resolutions A and B contained in document A/70/21. Now, before we proceed to action, does any delegation wish to make general comments on the draft proposals? If there are no such speakers, the committee will now proceed to take a decision on the draft proposals. May I take it that there is a general agreement in the committee to take a decision on draft resolutions A and B jointly? Does any delegation have any objection to this procedure? If I hear no objection, I shall take it that the committee agrees to take action on the two draft resolutions jointly. I hear no objections. It is so decided. Before we proceed to a decision, I shall first give the floor to those delegations who wish to explain their position before a decision is taken on the draft proposals. If there are no such delegations, in accordance with the decision that the committee has just taken, may I take it that the committee is prepared to adopt draft resolutions A and B jointly without a vote? If I hear no objection, I shall take it that the committee wishes to do so. Draft resolutions A and B contained in document A/70/21 are adopted without a vote. I shall now give the floor to those members of the committee wishing to explain their positions after the decision. If there are no speakers, does any delegation wish to make a general statement after the decision on the draft resolutions just adopted? If not, the committee has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item 58. Distinguished delegates, at the beginning of our meeting tomorrow, on Friday, 30th of October at 10 a.m., the President of the General Assembly will address the committee, and therefore we kindly request all delegations to be in the room on time. The committee will then begin its joint consideration of Agenda Item 56, comprehensive review of the whole question of peacekeeping operations in all their aspects, and Agenda Item 57, comprehensive review of special political missions, for a presentation by the Deputy Secretary General on the report of the Secretary General on the future of the United Nations peace operations. This will be followed by an interactive discussion. Thereafter, there will be statements by the Undersecretaries General for Peacekeeping Operations and for Field Support, followed by a question and answer session in closed session. After that, we will listen to the first statements in the general debate under Agenda Item 56, which will continue again also on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th November next week. I would also like to inform the delegations that the Department of Public Information will make a presentation on the Blue UN initiative immediately after the adjournment of this meeting in this conference room. Delegations are therefore invited to remain in the room for this presentation. If there is no delegation wishing to take the floor at this stage, I intend to adjourn this meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
I guess you're not running.
No, I'll stay. We...
Can we stop it first? Let me say a few words. Okay.
I can't do it. Can you say it? But now I think it's better already. Yeah. You will keep their attention more with the pictures. As you can imagine.
Oh, it's here. Thank you for staying. Basically, I heard many delegates over the last 3 days mention examples of the participating in the UN Turn the World UN Blue, which was a DPI initiative to mark the UN 70th anniversary. And I thought it would be maybe nice to show you some of the examples that were shared with us. We had more than 350 landmarks, buildings around the world that participated in this campaign that only started a few months ago. And much credit goes to you, because there was a note verbal from DPI to all the permanent missions inviting them, and we were really heartened by the great support that missions contacted us and telling us our capital has decided to do this, and many initiatives were taken by local governments by initiatives. So we just wanted to share that with you. There's a Flickr site that DPI has that has more than 450 of these photos. We just showed you a small example. Many countries participated with 20 and more than 20 landmarks, not just one or two. In New York, those of you who saw the UN building was turned blue, the Empire State Building, and some embassies in the Kennedy Center in Washington and so on. But we thought just to give you a taste of that, in a word of appreciation to all of you for supporting that campaign. Thank you very much. Thanks.
All the best tomorrow for the run.